Welcome back, listeners, to Learning from Friends. It's a pleasure to have you in with us today as we are venturing into another one of the worlds that I'm kind of a part of and I've been getting to enjoy into the auction world. And my friend that I'm going to interview today is George Franco, that we'll get a little introduction to after our quote of the day that my mother continues to send and gives us a lot of good information on. The quote today is, "We are all a little broken, but last time I checked, broken crayons still color the same." Thank you, Trent Shelton, for that. That's a very wonderful quote to kind of put into our segments of what we got going on. But the topics that we're looking at today is I'm speaking with the Good News Auctioneer, George Franco, who have been blessed to work alongside with in fundraising for nonprofit organizations where we are not just making an impact here in Georgia, but all over the world. During our time today, we're going to talk about George's background in broadcasting and production and his transition into the auction world and how he impacts these communities and the skill sets that he brought over from his previous work into being a benefit auctioneer specialist. George, welcome to the podcast.
Kate, thank you so much. I love that quote. We're all a little broken. The last time I checked, broken crayons still color the same, and the vibrant colors that we all put out. Thank you. It's an honor to be here. I appreciate it. Well, you asked me to introduce myself. They call me the Good News Auctioneer. I call myself the Good News Auctioneer because I was in the news for many, many years, like 3 decades. And one day I woke up and I knew what the story was going to be. And I said, I can't handle the bad news. And I said, I need good news. And had been doing benefit auctions a few years. And I said, the Good News Auctioneer. So the Good News Auctioneer was born on that day, literally when it just hit me on the side of the head going, I'm going to be the Good News Auctioneer. And I've stuck with it. And I think it conveys the message that we want to convey. And you're part of the Good News Auctioneer Network. And you're an auctioneer and you're a bid spotter. So Cade and I go way back. We always have a great time. And it makes a difference because once we're all said and done on this earth that we are in right now, what do we leave behind? We leave behind how we have made an impact and how we have helped others. So hence the Good News Auctioneer.
Yeah, it's a wonderful name for sure. Whenever you started using that moniker, I was like, oh my word, this fits perfectly from having come from that world of the broadcast news. On that. So do you have any funny stories of how potentially we have met or become connected?
Well, they call you Dancy Boy.
This is true. This is true.
And we were doing a benefit auction for one of the schools. And the thing I love about Cade is you have this energy that you put out and infuse and spread joy with. And part of that has to do with dancing and moving and letting this energy come through your body and kind of filter out and be part of this fundraising that we're doing. And when that energy is there and our energy is connected and the people's energy are connected, then we tend to raise more funds. So that's about Cade. Funny story. I don't know how funny this is, but I'll talk about La Mariposa Muerte. Mariposa, butterfly, muerte, dead. God. This is a good one. So we were doing a benefit auction at a fashion show for a woman's group. You weren't there. Maybe you could have saved it. I don't know.
I doubt it.
But somebody had the bright idea of letting maybe 200 monarch butterflies fly into the building. And they released them as we were doing a fundraiser. And it felt like the bug story. Watch out for the light! Oh, my God. And then the butterflies would all go to the top. And they were flying and flittering around. And people were saying, watch out for the butterflies. Don't step on the butterflies. And you'd hear, the butterflies were hitting the the lights and exploding.
Oh, my word.
And then they'd come down and crash on the runway because it was a kind of a fashion show. So I am delicately walking around butterflies. So I don't know if that wasn't probably very funny for the butterflies. And it was, I'm sure that PETA wouldn't be happy with it, but I had nothing to do with it. So I had to walk around that. But that teaches you how, when you're up on stage raising funds, whatever happens, same thing with TV, whatever happens, the show must go on. So at whatever level you're at with your own inner comfort, get past that and just keep pushing it. And we did have held a fundraiser, but that's I'm sure. Okay.
Go
I'm
for it.
starting to feel like TV news again.
Uh-oh.
So, okay, one more funny story. It was the Boys Club and Girls Club of the of the Virginia Peninsula. They found me on the web, and Susan Cookman called me and said, "Oh, we love you. We want to have the Good News Auctioneer be our auctioneer." So they flew me out. They put me up in a hotel, and it was the Big Kahuna. So the Big Kahuna was the theme of the night. It was a Hawaiian themed night. And I thought, okay, well, I'll get like a kahuna suit. Well, COVID and mail deliveries and everything was slow. So I had the suit delivered to the hotel. It got there that morning. When I got there, it hadn't gotten there yet. And then a couple hours later, it showed up. This is Friday night, mind you. The benefit auction is the next day. I put on the suit. I look like David Byrne with the talking heads.
Oh, man.
You know what I'm saying? So that suit was way too big. And I'm like, oh, no. Fortunately, I'd taken my other tuxedo just as a backup, but I thought, no, this is all about the Hawaiian. Look, it's a cool Hawaiian suit. So in the morning at 7:30, I wake up and I go to the first tailor that I find on the web. Nobody there. Second tailor I find on the web, and a lovely Korean lady said, "Hello, yes, I can help you. Yes, I'll have it done." So 8:30 in the morning, I go get breakfast, do my workout, come back, and the suit is ready by 2, and the event starts at 3.
Oh, wow.
So
Cutting it
talk
tight.
about cutting it close, and talk about getting nervous about, oh my God, I don't have what I need on, and things. It just seemed like it was going to be a disaster, and I'm like, oh, can't let the ship go down. Got the suit, got it in time. People love the suit. Nobody saw the kind of the foibles of putting it all together, but yeah, I don't know. Maybe that's just funny to me, but that was nerve-wracking is what it was.
I can believe that, because you never know before an event or after event what's going to take place and how something's going to react to it entirely. And as you said, the show must go on no matter what. You got to.
We did fine. We actually broke records, and it was fun, and it was that's part of the fun, isn't it? When you're walking a tightrope, it's that, is it going to crash and burn? Well, hopefully not. But you're going to have to keep moving forward no matter what.
That's very true. Do you remember, George, how we met, how we got connected?
I was kind of new to it, and I think you were too. I think it was at auction school. Our dear friend Robin Huff, who is the instructor and owner of North Georgia School of Auctioneering, who taught me as well, and she's very good, by the way.
My auctioneer mama, as she calls it.
Asked me to talk about benefit auctions to the class, and I talked to the class, and I met you and Devon, a fellow auctioneer, who's getting big in the car world, and also does benefit auctions. But yeah, that's how we met. And then I needed some bid spotters, and I called you and I said, "Hey, do you want to help bid spot?" And you've been part of it ever since.
Are we going on 6 or 7 years now?
Something like that.
Yeah, I think it was 2015. So we're in 2022 now. It's time adds up. Time flies.
We'll leave out the year and a half or so that COVID got in the way.
Yeah, we did, 1 or 2 together?
We did a few, and we did virtual, and you were part of that too. And that's a different way of connecting with audiences, but ultimately it's all about getting the same message out there, the right message out there, and the message that matches the mission, so that you are touching your patrons in a kind of an emotional way, so that for them it's meaningful to give at their own level, whatever they can do.
Yeah, that's very true. Now we're going to do two halves of our conversation. We're going to do one focusing on the first half of your career with broadcasting, and then we're going to jump back into auctioneering. So it's nice to get that introduction here with the auctioneering, because if it helps from what you've done in your past to bring to today forward. So broadcasting, can you give us kind of like an overview of your, 3-decade plus career within television?
Man. So I took early retirement from Fox 5 News, Atlanta, Georgia, in 2020, just before the pandemic hit. I spent 17 years here, maybe 16 and a half. And before that, I was in Sacramento, California. And before that, I was at the Orange County News Channel. And before that, I was at KFWB News 98, Los Angeles, Hollywood. You give us 22 minutes, we'll give you the World Radio Reporter. And before that, I was in Bakersfield, California, the weekend anchorman, KBAK, Action News 35. And before that, I was kind of struggling because TV News, a couple of the jobs went away over time. And before that, I was in San Antonio. And before that, I was in San Jose. And before that, I was in Albuquerque. And before that, my very first market was Yakima, Washington.
So you were born a traveling man.
Not by design, but ultimately, yeah. I ended up being the rambling man like on the Allman Brothers song. I was definitely traveling. And I love that I have been all over the country and seen and experienced different cultures and different people, but ultimately everybody's the same. You know, we're all, I think, looking for our place in the world where we feel safe and we feel love and we feel that we matter. And I ended up in Georgia, and Debbie Yellow Feather Bloom Franco, my wife, she's like, Atlanta, Georgia? When I said I had gotten a job offer here, and we've been here ever since. So we've made it a new home, and it's fun. We're happy with it.
Yeah, you have a very nice place here and a very good setup. And it's amazing to see when you got out and you continue with this whole broadcasting career too, and it's in a different element because there's so many elements to broadcasting. What is like some things behind the scenes that you really enjoy doing besides being in front of the camera?
Well, as a television news reporter, as a producer, as an anchorman, it's always about putting together the story and getting the story right and being accurate and as fair as you can be with the story. And that's the gathering process. I miss that. I miss connecting with people. As a reporter, I had lots of sources all over the state of Georgia and over the years all over various states. But you make a connection with people, and then they trust you. And then they trust you to get their story right. And when somebody does that, I think it's an honor. And sometimes, we all watch the news. It can be heartbreaking. I mean, how many children did I need to see taken by gun violence or taken by drugs, or how many young people that were involved with addiction, or how many causes and social injustices were there. So I've got a whole lifetime of covering stories like that. So I believe I missed that part of it, that we're, as a reporter, I called myself a living historian, and I was able to be part of some big, big stories. And I missed that, from the BP oil spill to, big trials here in Georgia, to the Heaven's Gate cult. I don't know if you know what Heaven's Gate was.
You got to be a part of that?
I covered Heaven's Gate. Heaven's Gate, for those that don't know, is Doe and his disciples. Doe believed that there was a better place to go, and we could get there. His disciples would get there by hopping on the Hale-Bopp comet.
Yeah.
Literally. When the Hale-Bopp comet was coming over Earth, Doe and 39, I believe, disciples all committed mass suicide, and believing that their spirits would hop a ride into eternal paradise on board the comet. And I'm like, oh, that's different. I will not ridicule that, because in their heart, soul, and mind, it was real to them.
Yeah. Those
lives were taken. They truly believe that. And I've spoken to victims, family members, and it was very real to them. So whatever level he created of this world, fairly, some said, a cult. I think that's a fair description. Whatever inertia and reality he input on his disciples, they followed him ultimately to the death. And there was nothing like that story that I'll ever cover again, because when the world was shown the black sneakers and all of the disciples in bed with sheets on their head, and the coin for the toll to get to paradise, yes, of course, you're like shaking your head, but that really happened. So I always wonder, what place do people get to that allows them to believe that they are giving the ultimate sacrifice and following somebody to that level. So just an amazing story that I'll never forget. And so, yeah, I covered Heaven's Gate.
What is there some like legal protections kind of going in this? Because you never know when you're covering something if someone's saying, hey, that's slander, or you get out to a location
Absolutely.
and it's not the safest of places.
Oh
How
my
are you
gosh.
protected legally and physically?
Well, let's start with the legal part. I have been named in a lawsuit, and it was not fun. It was a council member in another city, and his brother was caught on video stealing signs, allegedly stealing signs, but it's been so many years I won't even mention names or particulars, but stealing signs from the opposing campaign. And of course it got on the news, and the news, I was reporting it, and the powerful city council member came after the station I was working at, including myself. And as a journalist, there's nothing like being named in a lawsuit with your name is on the lawsuit.
Oh, man. I can only imagine.
And so you who do this podcast are not, or anybody who publicly puts out information is not immune to any of this.
No, not at all.
Those laws, and people believe erroneously that the internet protects them. Just the opposite. And those laws still apply to whatever platform you're on. But it was not fun to be named in a lawsuit, and I'll never forget that. So I was, and to this day, was very careful on dotting my I's and crossing my T's, and making sure, to the best of my ability, my information is accurate and fair. And fair, by fair, I mean both sides. And don't even get me going on this rant, because now you just have to pick your news. You want to be on the more conservative side, just go to that side. You want to be on the more liberal side, just go to that side. So that, to me, is the biggest kind of downfall, if you will, of journalism, is that we've become such a polarized nation. And I believe that it's a noble cause to be a journalist who can go to his deathbed like I will, knowing I was a fair journalist. I will go to my deathbed knowing that. And that feels good. That feels really good.
Definitely does, because if you cannot be able to sleep at night, then it's not going to go well.
And I think that's why I was able to do this job for so long, is that I knew that in my heart and soul I was being as fair as I could. And even if people come at you, I knew that I was being as fair as I could. So I always had this sense of, if both sides are a little angry at you, that's even better. One side didn't like that you covered the other side didn't like that you covered that side, but they don't know which side you're on, because I was never on a side. I covered both sides. I'm a journalist. It's not my role, or the role of reporters, to be on sides. It's our role to report it as objectively as we can. We all bring our biases into it, but at least acknowledge that, and at least acknowledge that I'm trying to be as fair as I can, and I always did every day.
And that's a key role within teaching as well. Whenever I'm doing something, I have to make sure that I'm giving both sides of the story. That's important. So whenever you're collecting a story and you're writing the story and you're trying to stay neutral, how long are you spending in order to write this and collect the story properly? Because sometimes you get it handed on your doorstep, I guess.
Sometimes.
Right early. We'll say pretty early.
It was very common that I would walk in the newsroom at 2 o'clock, and I'd try and get there early. 2 o'clock was the call time, but I would typically be there at 1:45, 1:30, because I had to find the stories and I had to take them to our editorial meeting, and then we would see what stories were being covered. And of course, sometimes I would win and sometimes I wouldn't. But often we have breaking news and I'm out the door, and it's in Covington and we're in Druid Hills, Atlanta, Georgia. And it's an hour away, and then it's 3:35, 3:40, and you're the lead story at 5. I'm like, well, I don't know anything about the story. Well, you better get on it. So I'm on the road calling my sources. What do you know? And typically these are breaking news, fire shootings, what have you, what they call breaking news. So I would call my source and get as much information as I could. So when I was on the air, I would go on the air and knew what I knew based on the proper sources. The most important role a reporter can have, I believe, is having sources that are trustworthy and sources that trust you. And by that, it was always important for me to advise my sources and let my sources know that they could trust me because, somebody would tell me, hey, this is what's going on, but we can't let this part of the story out. Okay, well, then we'll just put out this part of the story out. And I never burned a bridge as a source.
That's smart.
And that means everything to me. And I know that some people say, well, once you start talking, there is no off the record. I disagree. Off the record's off the record. And I stuck with it. And I had producers come at me and say, I need to know what you know. I said, no, you don't need to know what I know. I'm the reporter and I know what I know and I'll tell you when I know it. But we need to know. And I got into it with more than a few times about not revealing my information because I promised my source that I wouldn't reveal my information. So sometimes I would, sometimes I wouldn't. It would depend on who the producer was. Some people I trusted with, some people, to be honest, I didn't, and I wouldn't let it out. So I held my information close to the vest.
Yeah, there's a lot of psychology that goes into protecting everyone involved, including yourself. And that also, I bet you, helped with lawsuits as well, potentially coming your way. If you put out too much information, that person's job that was helping you get the information may no longer talk to you as well.
Yeah.
So it's highly important there.
You just learn along the way what the right parameters are, what the boundaries are, and keep it within your safe boundary for yourself. But more importantly, for your source, because they'll never talk to you again.
That's
and
true.
Then the word gets out that, oh, you can't trust that reporter. And there's plenty of reporters like that. I know them personally, and I won't mention what's channels, but some are worse than others. And the worst thing you want to do is have nobody trust you because they don't talk to you. Then you just become that guy who shows up with a camera and then they give you these very trite and very shallow information. Yeah. Whereas if you're the reporter they trust, they'll give you the bigger story.
Now, whenever you're say you got it from Druid Hills, you got to get down to Covington, who's all a part of that team? Like hopping in a van and going down and getting that. How many moving pieces
behind
there?
the scenes, we walk into a newsroom and you've got an assignment editor. The assignment editor is the guy who's got the big board and, I don't know, like today there's a story about Ahmaud Arbery and the conviction. So in every newsroom in Atlanta and probably across the country, and there are assignment editors saying, okay, who's covering Ahmaud Arbery's story? And then the producer, then the executive producer, and then they're kind of the big decision makers. The big boss, the news director, he's the ultimate decision maker. But typically it goes with the executive producer and then down to the assignment desk and then to the reporters. And a lot of times, like at where I used to work, we would bring our stories in and then we would pitch them to the team and we'd all decide collectively what story is going to make on the news. And so the gatekeeper part, and then you go out on a story and it's always myself and a photographer, more so now, reporters as, quote, multimedia journalists. When I was in Yakima, Washington, we just called that a one-man band. A one-man band multimedia journalist is the reporter with a camera, computer, and a way to transmit it back to the station where the reporter does all things. Not a fan. I just think that when we're out there covering stories, things can get testy, things can get dangerous, and they do. And so I've always liked the two-man crew, but that's just the reality of the economics of that industry. And so it's got, and these days, you don't need a big old camera. iPhone will do it. And
that's true.
I've shot stories on the iPhone. So the technology has made it so that you don't need the big cameras, you don't need the two-man crews, but I still believe that for the safety and for the relevance of the story, it's better because if you're being the cameraman and you're being the reporter, something's going to take away from something else. And if you're being the reporter, I got to get on the phone, I got to make phone calls, I got to double check. And we're rushed enough as it is, and if you're rushed to put a story together, you're dropping nuggets of information that maybe shouldn't be dropped. So stories get to be thinner and thinner, I like to say, thinner and thinner with information and less, I don't know if the accurate is the word, but less and less robust with details. And the other part of the equation is everything is streaming now. So okay, let's get it on the internet. Let's get it on the web, instantly streaming a story. Well, what if we don't know all the details? And
That's true.
And that was a big, and it still is with every reporter today. We'll get it on now. Okay. And that's, I think that ultimately the public suffers because information isn't as vetted as it should be. So, but social media that's a whole different rabbit hole.
That is true. We're in that instant world now where everything has to be kind of that quick and click, kind of be able to go as fast as you can. Now, there's a lot of stressors that come with this job. How did you deal with that over the years to be able to maintain relationships, friendships, being able to get rest at night and be able to also survive? Because there's a lot of stress that goes to your job.
This is very stressful, and it's a deadline-driven industry. And if you've got a deadline at 5, 6, 10, and 11, and 11:30, and if it's breaking news, you're doing in between. And if you're putting information on the web, that's a lot of pressure. Yoga, working out, eating right, trying to get sleep, understanding that you understand the industry, knowing how to get through your thoughts quickly, not doubting yourself, not having a writer's block. I had terrible writer's block when I first started, but after a while, you're like, I don't have time for writer's block. Sorry if it's not. But my bigger thing was, is it accurate? Okay, yeah, I'm getting it accurate. So first thoughts first. My first impression is what I would typically go with. And then when I'm putting a story together, you always go with, what are the highlights? So once you figure out how to do that and quickly write a story in a broadcast voice, then I think you just have this process that makes it easier. But the truth is, a lot of burnout in broadcasting.
I can believe that.
A lot of divorce in broadcasting. And thank you, Yellow Feather, for putting up with me. Yeah. It's a tough industry.
Yeah.
And you never know. I mean, it's going to happen to somebody in Atlanta soon, and it's happening already. But there's been some talk of mergers of various television companies that take over a station, and through no fault of their own. If you get a new news director and you get new leadership, you're going to have a new face. Before I took the job here in Atlanta, my old station was bought out by CBS News. I'm like, dude, you could have worked for CBS News. Not. I'd have thought 35 on-air people, they let 33 go, 31
wow.
go. Everybody got fired. And it wasn't because they weren't good. Everybody was fine. Everybody was doing a great job. It was that they had their own version, and they had their own face, and they had their own identity. So if you're already the identity of a TV station and somebody else buys it out, say good luck.
Yeah, they want to create their own identity. For the most part,
and I've been through, I don't know, and that's, I guess I'm fortunate because I've been through a lot of those, and I've seen a lot of people come and go. So I managed to, good, bad, or ugly, stay in the broadcasting industry to the very end.
Now I'm going to jump backwards here a little bit. How did you get into broadcasting?
Oh, I had no idea that I was going to be a broadcaster. Nobody in my family even knew what that was. And just long story short, because it is a long story, but I mean, along the way, there were people that made a difference, good people and bad people. I don't mean bad in a true sense that there was any kind of nefarious effort, but there was a teacher, and you're a teacher, so you can dig this. It was a teacher counselor day, and that day when I was in 11th grade, the teacher we had a career day, and the teacher said, "Oh, you have nothing to worry about, George." I said, "Oh, why is that?"
Okay.
And the teacher said, "Oh, yeah, you're not college material." And I
what?
went, what? Exactly. Yeah. Who the heck are you to tell me that? And so every time I would speak to kids, at-risk Latino kids like that at schools, I would always tell that story because I said, never let anybody tell you what you can and can't do. Whether you go to college or not is irrelevant. Trade schools, college, whatever you choose, at least let it be your chosen path, and have enough belief in yourself and look out and find the right people that are going to enforce you, not tear you down. I don't think she meant it. I think she really thought I wasn't college material. Uh-huh. But to tell that to an impressionable 15-year-old, what did I know? I didn't know anything. Yeah,
that can wreck your world entirely.
And you know what? I didn't go to college. out of high school because I'm not college material. I went and I started working working at a marina.
Oh, cool.
Working on boats, and I was a punky kid, and I walked away from my parents, and I was 18 years old, and I left, and my dad said, "You'll be back because you can't make it on your own." I said, "I'll never go back," and I never went back. We're friends now. But long story short, I went to work at that marina, and a guy who owned a boat was a registrar, and he said, "What are you doing working on boats? You should be in college." And I said, "They told me I wasn't smart enough." He goes, "Oh, that's BS. Of course you're smart enough." We actually had that conversation. So
good.
He kind of steered me back into school. And then at Olympic College, J.P. Anduiza, the registrar, George Newsom, a counselor, said, "What are you doing here? You should be at the University of Washington." One thing led to another. Robert Spencer found me at the University of Washington Daily after a year and a half. I went into the University of Washington Daily and asked the editor, "Hey, can I write?" He goes, "I don't know. Can you?"
Ooh,
and
nice words.
I still have the first article I ever wrote. And from there, Robert Spencer walked in. He said, "We're looking for DJs." I'm like, "Dude, I'll do that." Just because I'm like, "Hey, man, I want to play rock and roll. I love being a DJ." And I did. And then he said, "Why aren't you on TV?" I said, "What does that mean?" He goes, "We've got the Week's End. It's a news program for the college."
Okay.
And so I auditioned for the Week's End. And first I was a reporter, then I was the anchorman. And next thing I know, I'm like, "Oh, wow. Okay." A year and a half later, I'm like, "Oh, I guess I'm doing TV." It was not I'm going to go into college and be a journalist. I wish I could say it was, but it wasn't. And then I got out of college. And then I sent my tape when we had videotape all over the country. And I got my first job in Yakima, Washington. And here we are.
That's amazing. That
to this day.
Just kind of falls into place sometimes. And you never know twists and turns it's going to take.
Yeah.
Do you have any advice for someone who's looking at getting into this field? Because there's a lot of misconceptions. There's a lot of ideas that people
You mean
think.
as far as broadcasting?
Yeah, to getting into broadcasting.
Don't do it because you want to be famous. I mean, okay. Don't do it because you want to be an anchorman. Don't do it because you want to be interviewing celebrities. I'm not going to tell people what not to do it for. But in my sense of the world, if you're going to do that, have some inner gumption and inner pride to get the details right. That's all. If you're going to be a journalist and get it right. Find your sources, cultivate your sources, get it right, have some pride in your work, and go on TV and be a success. Or radio, and these days nobody's watching TV anymore. It's all streaming.
That's a lot. Yeah,
by the time somebody gets out of high school and gets into this profession, I don't know what it's going to look like. So I think we've changed the way we do and consume. Now we see it on our phones. So it's going to be following that. But no matter how the information is released to the consuming public, it's still the same tenets of journalism: the who, what, where, when, how, and why. Get it right. Get your sources. Be accurate. Be fair. Simple. But it's not that simple. For me, it is, because that's what I learned.
That's what you learned. That's what you did on that. That's amazing.
And and forgive me, but
you're good.
I am not wrong on that. I am right on that. I'll go to my deathbed knowing I'm right on that, because it matters. I've done enough stories to know that if you're not fair, it's not fair. The easiest thing to do is to beat somebody up publicly. That's easy. The harder, more noble thing to do is to cover the story as fair as you can. Because you got to look inside yourself and say, am I being fair with this? Or am I going to get maybe a little bit of a bigger headline because I can play it up and sensationalize it a little bit more? I like to be fair.
And you can have 5 minutes of fame, but is that 5 minutes of fame worth eliminating your entire possible career over something?
And, I don't want to be hated either. I think people in Atlanta know me and see me and believe me as a reporter and trusted in me. And I always thought that I had a good reputation, and it mattered a lot to me.
And I think that's what has led to a very good transition into the auction world. Of you have all these people that know
let's
who
talk
you
auctions.
are. Let's go auctions. That's what I'm saying. Let's go some auctions here.
I'm done with TV news.
So how did you become interested in auctions?
Well, auctioning became part of my life when we had gone through real estate. I do real estate too, and I was like, okay, we've already tapped out. If you recall, during the 2007 to 2010, the market crashed and burned, and you were getting houses pennies on the dollar. And we managed to pick up some foreclosed houses, and we bought an auction house. This house we're in right now, we bought it at an auction.
Oh, you did? I didn't know
We bought
that.
this house at auction. And Debbie and I came here, and we said, oh, it's on a lake. Oh my God, it's at the auction. And I said, well, we're going to go to the auction. If we get an auction house as an investment, we'll buy that. But we never did get one. And this house came up, and we got it at the right price. And there's nothing like buying a home in under 4 minutes, in 5 minutes. And we're like, oh my God, what have we done? And we really thought about backing out because we thought we'd made a mistake. We did not make a mistake.
Yeah, you have a very lovely home.
This house has gone up incredibly in value since we picked it up. And I knew I was kind of tapped out with real estate because I don't have any more money. I don't know what to do. I'm okay. What am I going to do next? I couldn't do video production at Channel 5 because the contract says no video production. It says conflict of interest. My agent said, just do something else, George. Sign the darn contract because you can't. I still got gear from back when in the 90s. He said, you can't do video production. Do something else. So I'm like, well, what else can I do? And I said, well, I did the real estate. I said, well, I thought the auctions were fun. And I thought the 25, 35, able to buy now, 45, 55, you get to buy, sold. I thought that was fun. I said, oh, I wonder if I could just do that. So I went into auctions, and I went to you've done this, the little country auctions.
Yep.
After I got my license, and it was in Winder, and I'm 25 cents now, 35 now, 45, you able to buy at 55. Sir, that's 55 cents.
It can be tough. It can be tough.
And I'm trying to sell little stuff at little auctions just to learn the auction world. And somebody comes up to me and says, I forget who did this. Said, you're the TV dude. Yeah.
Yep.
Why aren't you doing benefit auctions? I said, oh, what's that? Oh, wow. Ding, 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 ding. Then the light went off. And then I joined NAA, National Auctioneers Association, and got my benefit auctioneer specialist designation and have been doing them since.
So what does it take for those that are unfamiliar with this, how did you find North Georgia School of Auctioneering to start with? How did you locate that? Because it's a week-long course that you have to be able to go through to complete, and then you have to be able to submit to the Georgia Business Bureau to be able to. There's a long process to be able to go through. How did you originally find the auctioneer school?
I looked on the internet and I saw Georgia Auctioneering, North Georgia School of Auctioneering, Robin Huff and Charlie Gay, and it said you needed 10 days. And I'm like, oh, I don't have 10 days. I'm working. And I finally took my vacation time with the 10 days. So that first day until the very last day, up until the last day that I went from the last day of school back to work, that was my vacation, was doing school.
Oh, wow.
And so it took me about 1.5 years to even just get that time, to find the time when I could do vacation time and they were holding classes. Unbeknownst to me at the time, I didn't even realize, but there are schools all over the country, which I may have, but you still needed 10 days. So I'm very happy with what I did. And then through the Secretary of State, the Georgia Auctioneers Commission has a written test that you take to get your license. And I did that, as you did.
Yep.
And then I've been licensed ever since, and there's continuing education, and I keep up with my continuing education, and I get a license. And I don't know if your listeners knew this, but I bet you knew this. An auctioneer is called a colonel.
Yep. Because
during the Civil War, especially in the South,
oh yeah,
the victors of war would sell the spoils of war at auction, and the person who sold it was a colonel. And so that term stuck for auctioneers. So when somebody first called me Colonel Franco, it was an honor. So I love being an auctioneer. It's a fun vocation. Yeah. Somebody once said, "Is that a hobby?" I said, "No, fly fishing's a hobby. Auctioneering is a vocation.
Yeah.
It's a business, and you can sell anything and everything at auction. The finest assets in the world are sold at auction.
Indeed.
So yeah, but as a benefit auctioneer, which you know, what we're doing is we're aligning ourselves with our great causes like childhood cancer, like Wheels of Happiness, where they send wheelchairs all over the world. Like coming up this, I don't know if this will be on the air or not, but it's a Boss Girl. It's a nonprofit that lifts up young women to get past the glass ceilings. To me, I thought Boss Girl was just the wife, you know.
Oh, man.
So Boss Girl is going to be coming up, and we've got a number of these. So, yeah. We've raised, I'd say, a few $1 million for nonprofits.
Easily.
Yeah, we have fun.
Yeah, and because if we do anywhere between 12 to 30 a year, depending upon what's going on.
Yeah.
Well, we didn't last the last 2 years.
It's coming back.
It is. It's there, but again, as you said, you have to adapt. That's what we started doing.
Yeah.
We're a mixture of hybrids and stuff. Now, after you got your Georgia Auctioneer's license, you found the NAA, the National Auctioneers Association, and you got your BAS, the Benefit Auctioneer Specialist.
Right.
What does that entail now? Because that's another designation that you have to add on.
Right. I also have an AMM, Auctioneer Marketing Management, and a BAS, Benefit Auctioneer Specialist. Benefit Auctioneer Specialist is a designation by the Business Association of the National Auctioneers Association. And basically it's best practices shared and learned through other auctioneers. And we have a Benefit Auctioneers Summit every year, and we gather and we get together, and I've gotten to know various benefit auctioneers from across the country, so I'm learning from the very best on how they raise funds. And it isn't about fast talking. Anybody, and there's some amazing auctioneers.
Oh my gosh,
amazing
yes.
auctioneers that are very fast talkers. But it's a different skill set because you're getting in front of a crowd and you're asking for funds to help proliferate a mission of a certain cause. So at first I was really nervous because I'm like, well, who the heck am I to ask these people? And then I got past it and I went, well, it's not about me ever.
No.
And that's the good thing. I'm like, it's not about me. and I say this, I still say it, and it helps me. And I think it helps the audience understand me. I'll say something like, as a reporter, I was never afraid to chase the bad guy because I knew it was the right thing to do. As an auctioneer, a benefit auctioneer, I'm never afraid to ask for funds for the right cause is because I know it's the right thing to do. And we all know in this audience intrinsically that we are here together because we share in the same vision. So at whatever level you can share in that vision, we appreciate your generosity tonight. So, I mean, that's just, you've heard me. We've said the same thing. You've done it.
Yeah.
So it's just a matter of sharing the message and the mission. And it really feels like a godsend when I'm up there. Because
entirely. It's a blessing.
It's not really me. Hopefully I can be a good channel for some of these things, and hopefully I represent the folks we're working for. Yeah, that's what it means to me to be able to help, and it's a good feeling.
You're an ambassador for that program.
That's right. You're an ambassador of goodwill is always a good way to say it.
Exactly. Now, whenever you're up there, you have to preserve your voice because you have to be able to get up there and be able to, probably clear your throat right now to make sure. And there's the chants, as you've done earlier. There's different types of chants. Now, what is your tips for being able to best preserve your voice?
Well, good sleep, centered for the day, a little bit, yoga to focus myself, and sometimes I use them, sometimes not. It's called Breathe Easy, as I'm looking for it. Promotes respiratory health. It's herbal medicinal tea, and then throat coat to coat your throat. Those things. And also just your focus, your energy, visioning yourself up there. Just have a vision of what it is to do and see yourself doing it. It's not quite like running off a mountain with a hang glider, but
no. You did that for a while, didn't you? Yeah, you're an instructor.
I did.
Yeah.
But it's kind of the same rush. I think it's adrenaline rush that I miss that. From television, I miss the adrenaline rush. I totally do. And that's part of also being in front of a crowd.
Yeah, it is a rush.
It's a nerve wrack, and that's fair. And most people, one of the most fearful things for most folks is public speaking, understandably.
Yeah, it is. It's hard. It's not easy.
So if you put yourself out there and you're doing it for a cause, it's okay. And if I call myself the Good News Auctioneer, I better live up to it.
That's true. Now, give me the, you did it earlier, but give me the explanation. You started off as Red Cloud Auctions.
Yes.
And you still run the moniker, but now you've run into doing the Good News Auctioneer because of that, the words that come to you. How did you first get Red Cloud Auctions?
It wasn't really such a mind bender. And I'm not, well, I am kind of Native American, like 132nd Tiwa Indian, which is out of the Texas band of the Apaches, I believe. But it wasn't about my heritage. It was more about, I was in Albuquerque, New Mexico as a reporter, and I was at the Sandia Mountain, the tram. If you know, ever been to Albuquerque, there's the Sandia Mountains. You take a tram to the top of the mountain. And it's called Sandia Watermelon for Spanish, and it's red clouds, beautiful red clouds of Albuquerque. I probably had a couple too many to drink, and I said, and I was looking for a pseudonym to write poetry and an article, and I didn't want to use George Franco, the TV guy. So I'm like, Ernest is my middle name, and I saw the red clouds, and I went, oh, Ernest Red Cloud. That's all.
Huh.
That's how Red Cloud was born. Since Albuquerque, 1986, 85. So Ernest Red Cloud has been around forever, and he's been my pseudonym, and I've written poetry, and I probably should bring him alive again. But I've always called, there's always been Red Cloud this and Red Cloud that. So when the auctions came up, I needed a name, and I just jumped to Red Cloud Auctions. But for no other reason other than Ernest Red Cloud has been part of my life forever. So that's why.
And I was always curious about that because you never know where that kind of names come in and out of.
Yeah. But now I'm and I like the Good News Auctioneer better, but you know, Ernest Red Cloud, the Good News Auctioneer.
There you go. Exactly.
Yeah.
Now let's jump back into the benefit portion, benefit auctions. A lot of people just think we're walking up there and we're calling and then we're off. There's a lot of behind the scenes, like within broadcasting.
Oh my God. Yeah.
What all does it take to be that ambassador?
Well, and I wonder if I just got the phone call, but my phone call's on, and here's Stan. A benefit auction, like many things in life, a news story, an auction, it's like an iceberg. You only see a little part. You only see the tip.
Oh yeah.
But you don't see the bottom part. You don't see 3/4 of it. The 3/4 of it are consulting with the clients, helping them what kind of software they're going to use, what are their packages, what do they want to sell, what's their message, what are we going to do. The Smith Gilbert Gardens Gala is coming up, and we meet, I try, but we've been meeting for the last month and a half, and every 2 weeks, and we'll meet until the event, which is in May. And so what's their message? Who's their speaker? What equipment are they using? What are we selling? How are we collecting funds? Who's reaching out to donors? Who's talking to sponsors? Who's bringing somebody in? Who's inviting? There's so many layers of fundraising that the audience never sees because they just see the 25, 35. You want to do it. If you can help, please. It would be wonderful right now. So they see that part. They don't see everything else.
No, they don't.
They don't. Same thing with the news. All they see is what's on TV. They don't see the 8 hours and 10 hours or 2 weeks or whatever it took to get that story. They just see it on the news.
And it takes, once that one event closes, you start for the next year. You got to plan out.
Yeah.
It's not like you can plan it a day before, 2 days before, because you got to get the venue, you got to get all the food stuff in place.
There's a lot going on.
And sometimes that you're helping bring in consignment items if they don't have something in place as well. Because you have made those connections as well through the BAS.
Oh, absolutely.
In other ways as well, that just debate. And you will sometimes talk with other auctioneers and go, hey, I've got this. Can we trade 1 for 2 in order to make that work further? And you offer a lot of more than just your voice in that. What you have a lot of the broadcasting items, like with doing the hybrid stuff that we were in studios.
Yeah.
You have a lot of this gear that you bring in.
Oh, and that's the other part. When COVID hit, we couldn't get together with 400 or 500 people.
No.
So we did the proverbial pivot, and everybody by now knows Zoom, and everybody's zoomed out. But when we were raising funds, we did virtual, and you were part of a couple. We did virtual benefit auctions where the plan was, let me see, how are we going to do this? You got to get in front of a camera. Oh, I can do that. I did broadcasting.
You have that skill.
And then you got to fundraise with certain software. Oh, I can do that. I'm a benefit auctioneer. So the two came together like I just couldn't believe. And I'm still kind of working down that aisle of offering virtual, hybrid, or live. We've got a virtual coming up where it's just virtual. I've got a live coming up where it's just live. And somebody else is talking about a hybrid. So whatever level of fundraising folks need, whatever nonprofit is out there, hint, hint, we can help the Good News Auctioneer. And Cade is part of that, the Good News Auctioneers Network. Because, yes, I do have all the video gear. Yes, I am a professional benefit auctioneer. And yes, I've got background in broadcasting. So those skills have all come together. When it comes to putting together a virtual auction, I am now more of a producer, executive producer, video editor, script writer, talent, on-camera talent, benefit auctioneer, and fundraiser. All of those things have come together. And yeah, I dare say that I know what all of those are. And what I've found is that some folks know AV, but they don't know fundraising. Some folks know fundraising, but they don't know AV. So with me, I know fairly well all those worlds.
Yeah, which gets you so much work and respect as well, because if you do one auction,
Yeah.
you never know who's in the audience is going to pass it along
Yeah,
to
yeah.
the next one. And we have to do a lot of competition being in the benefit auction world of the free auctioneer. We have to constantly battle with.
You get what you pay for, right?
Yeah, and sometimes that does happen a lot, and they don't see you being able to do all that other pieces of work
No.
until they bring you in. And we have a couple of tricks to the trade that we bring in to raise extra money, in which we learned some of these tricks with some of the games that we play. We're doing the heads or tails can be
Yep.
fun. Which heads or tails is, as it says, you have a coin, you flip it up and down with a head, touch your head, tails, touch your tush, and you can raise money off of that, or you can do it as a fun game just to get everybody involved. Then we have our fund to need at the end or before, depending upon where sometimes we've done auctions where it's just fund to need, where we're going out, say, hey, we're trying to fund this specific need. Say, for example, I did a baseball one recently, but we're trying to fix our dugout in the back. That's $50,000. Okay, well, you know what? As you use the famous words of, if you don't ask, you don't know, that's start out with the 50,000, and then we tier it down to their level.
Yep.
And then it comes the fun one of the last hero standing.
Yeah, that's a hoot, isn't it?
Yeah, go that one. Explain the last hero standing.
Well, the last hero standing is a game where the last hero to donate wins a prize. So basically, I'll tell the audience, ladies and gentlemen, this is a game called The Last Hero. The last person, i.e. hero, to donate will win a prize. It's not it's not an auction. It's not a bid. It's a straight donation. And if you donate several times, then you are investing, I like to say, several times. So if you donate 5 times at $100, you've donated $500. So it works because if you do the math and the prize takes it to that level, then the people are in. For example, what are some of the things we've done? We've done, I don't know, liquor baskets,
Trips.
Yeah. So you have, like, say, a trip to Mexico that's valued at $2,400, and it costs the nonprofit $1,000. So you need 10 hands in the air. You got 300 people, 400 people in the crowd, and then you're past the 10, and you go to 30 or 40 or 50 hands in the air. So then the nonprofit makes the difference of $4,000 to $5,000. So it works well because everybody wants a deal.
Yeah,
and
they do.
everybody wants to say, well, I can do that. And that's my line. I always tell myself, if people can say, I can do that, then they're going to be in, like, if you put something out that's worth $30,000, people are going to go, I can't do that.
Yeah.
And then eyes are going to glaze over and you're going to lose them. But if you put something that's out $1,000 and they're in for $100, I can do that.
Yep.
And if people say I can do that, then they're in. And that's what I tell my clients. I say, well, let's ask that question. Yeah, are people going to say I can do that? And so for everything that I like to do that now with my clients. Say, for this trip, are people going to say, I can do that? Yes. No. Yes, because we've got these people showing up. Yes, because we know who they are. Yes, because we have invited people who are well-heeled and can afford it. No, because it's too much money. No, because it doesn't fit our crowd. No, because it's a fashion crowd, not a stock car racing crowd, not a NASCAR crowd.
Yeah.
So there's lots of ways to tailor it. So my one overriding question is, ask that crowd, can I do that? And if they say I can do that, then that's a good sign. But yeah, so that's the last hero. If people say I can do that, then I think that's a good sign. And it's fun, too.
Oh, it is a blast,
It's a blast.
running around the room.
Yeah, you go 5, 4, 3, and boom, hands in the air.
Yeah, 5, 25, 75. You've got like tons of people, and it jumps, and that's where a lot of the money really comes from at the end of that night. And sometimes it takes 1 or 2 times running that auction with them for them to get comfortable to do that with you.
Yeah, and as you know, and we've both seen that schools, nonprofits that want to do it on their own, they've held. Oh boy, this is where I chuckle a little bit because, probably some of your listeners are going to go, I've been to something like that. And that's when they should call us, Kate.
There we go.
Either call Kate or me. But what they'll do is they'll say, oh, well, John Smith, he's a very bubbly and energetic parent. However, John Smith gets up there. He's not an auctioneer. You can't do the bid 25, 35, able to buy, sir, would you do that chant. And the other part is he'll embarrass people, say, come on, John, or come on, Bobby, I know you can do it. You're loaded. Cough it up. We don't embarrass people. We don't lessen the cause. Always honor the cause. Always honor the people. Always approach it with highbrow, not lowbrow. And you could tell in the audience.
Yes, you could pick out your humor.
And when somebody says that's enough, I mean, if I see a husband and a wife and we're at 1,000, now 1,250, now 15, now 1,750, now 2,000, now 25, now 2,750, now 3, now 3,250, now 35. And then the husbands, when you're at the lower numbers, no problem, dear. And then I'll say, now you're not going to say no to those lovely blue eyes. And then the wife's like fluttering her eyes and you get a nice laugh. And that works until it doesn't work. And then when you're at like 4,000 and the husband's like, that's enough, you can see it in his face.
Yeah.
And you've reached that limit. I just say, well, thank you for helping us get there. And if they're out, they're out. You don't want to push people to a point where you piss them off because it doesn't help. It doesn't help the cause.
And then you have the competition in the room whenever you have the live events. Is you may have Jamie and Fred that just are very competitive with each other, and they're going to jump up that price as well.
So real quick, Cade, how are you going to get money? One is they love your cause, and that's the best part. And they'll give you directly to the fund of need at the best levels. 2 is egos get involved, and you got 2 guys or women or whatever, 2 people, let's say, who have successful businesses, and everybody knows them, and everybody knows they're doing well, and they want everybody else to know they're doing well.
Yes, they are.
And then the egos get in the way, and that's when the money goes up. 3 is you've got businesses that are philanthropic, and they're going to donate to your cause because it's a great thing to do, and they get their name out, and they get the word out about who they are to the specific audience. And 4 is, what do I get for my money? The last hero. So for $100, I can get something worth $1,000. Ooh, that's good. So to me, those are the 4 basic tenets of raising funds, and those are the people. And if you can approach each one and attack each one and specifically acknowledge what they're doing and why they're doing, then you'll do a lot better versus just rolling the dice. So many people just roll the dice and hope it works out well.
Yeah, you got to let them stand up. You got to acknowledge, hey, thank you, George. Thank you, Jamie. Hey, thank you, Bell South. And hearing that name and getting the C up, that feeds into that ego and feeds into that. There's a lot of psychology that people just forget. There's that psychology.
A lot of psychology.
There.
Absolutely.
Now, you were a board member for the Georgia Auctioneers Association.
Yes.
Why is it important for auctioneers to be able to come in and join the GAA?
Well, because whatever level as an auctioneer you are, whether it's in real estate or selling antiques or cars or benefit auctioneers, money's involved.
Yeah, there is.
And it can be a lot of money. If you've seen Barrett Jackson, I know some of the folks over there, the car auctions, you're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars. If you're talking real estate, you're still talking a lot of money. If you're talking benefit auctions, you're still talking a lot of money.
Oh, yeah, there's a lot of money.
So there's a lot of money involved. And so when money's involved, regulation is also involved, and I believe should be involved. And, whatever you think is a fair cut to Aunt Georgia and Uncle Sam, then that is what it is. But if you're taking shortcuts and you're not following proper procedure, then you as an auctioneer are liable. And then once again, it's the same thing like being a reporter. I don't want to end up in court. I want to do it by the rules. I want to do it by the book. And the truth is, not every state in the country requires licenses, but Georgia does. So if you want to be an auctioneer, we require in this state that you have an auctioneer's license. If you don't have an auctioneer's license, you can be shut down. But more than that, if you're an auctioneer who shows up to work for a company, then you're just leaving people high and dry. It's just, I think it's a safe way, and it protects the consumer as well as the auctioneer.
Which you need out there. And that's why also the NAA, the National Auctioneers Association, is there as well to be able to protect on a national scale level. And we're talking to our representatives and our senators in order to help with legislation to protect as well.
Right.
And it's not something that can just happen overnight. It takes years. And you have to have those people that are experienced on those boards like yourself to bring that insight and make it better. And that is just a wonderful thing that you're doing there, helping out with that. Another one of our members as well is on the board.
Absolutely. So. Yeah, it's a good thing to be part of. And I encourage anyone and everyone to consider the auction method, not just for fundraising, but for selling assets, in particular real estate or liquidations, because I mean, the Banksy artwork.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Through the roof. High-end art sells at auction.
Sotheby's,
jets, automobiles, they all sell at auction. So if you've got a fine property that you can find the investors for, people who spend money like that are not unknown to the auction world. So that's why I believe auctions, you can also market specifically to who's looking for that specific property. Hence, George Franco, Faith Realty. Auctioneer liquidation.
I was going to get to your plugging here in a moment. We're going to get there. It's very important to get there.
Plug. That's terrible.
We need the plugs. It's important. It's what keeps things going. Now, is there any misconceptions or things that you like to kind of also, we've hit a lot of clearing up some, but is there any other ones that you want to kind of clear up that of the auction world per se that people give us a bad rep for or confusion on?
Well, it depends on different levels. As a benefit auctioneer, that anybody can do the benefit auctioneers. I don't believe they can. And that it's not about the fast talk, 25, 35, able to buy now, 45, 55, you can buy 75. There's lots of great auctioneers out there, but it's important to connect with the audience. So you're more of an ambassador of goodwill, and you are a messenger for the mission of whatever your nonprofit and your cause is. So if you can echo that cause and emotionally connect with the audience, then you're going to raise more funds as a fundraiser, as a professional benefit auctioneer. And I believe if you're going to go down that road, then why not learn from the best across the country?
Yes.
And that's what I've done, you know. Renee Jones and Mike Jones, her brother, as well as Kurt Johnson, as well as
the Bear family,
Paul Seabear, and then Haley Bear, and there's auction, and of course the champ Jay Cash is a great auctioneer. There's some really, really powerful auctioneers that do wonderful all across the country. So why not learn from the best?
The list is endless. So I'm sorry if you didn't make it into the list. Is endless. We love every single one of you auctioneers. You're very special, and you bring everything, your own thing to the plate.
Yeah.
Now, as we're getting ready to kind of like wind down here, is there anything that you would like to share in general with my audience here?
I think it's the same thing with whether I was a broadcaster or whether I'm a professional benefit auctioneer or I'm selling real estate or doing video production. It's always your name on the line. It's George Franco Productions. It's George Franco, the Good News Auctioneer. It's George Franco selling. It's my name. And I'll never forget that. I always worked for other people, but I always worked for myself in the sense that as a reporter, I had my reputation at stake. So I protected vigorously. So if you're going to do anything, keep your reputation intact. And the only way to really do that is have integrity and don't take shortcuts. Powerful words there. Now, how can we find you, George? I'm easy to find. Just Google me. You can find me George Franco, the Good News Auctioneer, but I'm at redcloudauctions.com, www.redcloudauctions.com. That is the Good News Auctioneer website. I'm also at faithrealty.com. That's where I sell real estate as a real estate auctioneer. And those are my two main vocations. And I also have, by the way, George Franco Productions, and you can find me under George Franco Productions. Breaking news, we're going to change the name to Tiger Eye Media.
Okay.
So
Interesting.
soon we're going to have Tiger Eye Media. And I at this point in my life, I'm like, I want to do what I want to do. And when it comes to video production, I want to back up my nonprofits, and I also want to do fun, high-end sport cars, fishing, adventure, hence the Tiger Eye Media, where life and business are an adventure. Oh, I just came up with that.
There you go. Hey, something to carry on with it. Something to carry on here. I love it. Thank you, George, for coming on here to Learning from Friends and sharing this lovely information and helping our audience grow, because it's an important fact that some people just miss out on certain parts of life. And as you said, the technical programs, there's all these different things out there. Why not be able to just to have one more tool in your toolbox?
Life is an adventure. Just live it, enjoy it, have fun. And thank you, Cade. We love you. You know, you're part of the Good News Auctioneers Network. Dancy boy, everybody.
Oh, yeah.
Cade Curtis is the best.
I appreciate that. Now, again, don't forget to like, subscribe, share with your friends. I'm on all media formats when it comes to where you can listen to podcasts. You can send me an email at Cade, which is CADE, at learningfromfriends.com. Now, as you leave today, the most important thing is to remember to let your curiosity fly high. Have a wonderful afternoon. This is Cade Curtis, your tour guide with Learning from Friends.